Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Look, first of all, I am going to have to rename this network the Medicare for All Network because you know what? An article came out today. And before I get into the show, I just have to tell you about this article. Of course, it'll be helpful if I bring the darn thing up, but it was written by somebody. It was written by a woman. I don't have her name right now, but it is called The Plot Against Medicare for All. And she talks and she says, the political establishment rediscovers the benefit of red baiting and xenophobia to preserve the healthcare industry's buckrakers. We are going to have to discuss that, and I'm getting some background sound from something that I don't quite know where it's coming from, but we'll take care of that. Anyhow, folks, as it turns out, that is going to be part of the program, but that is after we get to the second part. But anyhow, title of the show today: he's still fighting for Medicare for all after losing his arm and under debilitating chemo. The warriors of Medicare for all do not allow themselves downtime for illness. And my buddy didn't either. They know it is existential and that people must personalize it. Danny Fetonte is today's Medicare for all hero. Danny is our Medicare for all hero today, and we're going to have some talking to do with him. Anyhow, Danny Fetonte, like Bernie Sanders, could not wait to promote Medicare for all, even as they recovered from illness. I got a shocking email from a friend of mine. He lost his arm to liposarcoma. What was amazing in the article was his immediate turn to being the explainer-in-chief to his doctors, his nurses, and patients about Medicare for all. So, let me tell you folks, if El Señor Fetonte can do what he is doing to make it better for us all, we have no excuse to be engaged. We have no excuse to not be a part of the solution. We don't have any excuses not to do all that it's going to take to make sure that our fellow citizens, our brothers and sisters, everybody is informed. Because this is life or death, this is existential. Today, a friend of mine that I had on last week, she also has a new report out. What's happening to the price of health care? What's happening to the price of health care insurance, health insurance? Look, this is existential, and these guys are going to bleed us for all they can, and they will only make a change when it falls like a house of cards. The problem about it is when a house of cards falls, all the cards that fall have fallen. We don't want all Americans or most of Americans or a large percentage of Americans to have fallen before we really start doing what needs to be done. It is imperative, folks, that we do it. But anyhow, before we get started, today is the second Wednesday, or today is Tamara's Wednesday, right? I give every other Wednesday she's here with us. And I noticed that she had a hell of a lot happening over the last week. She was rubbing shoulders with some interesting people. So we're going to talk about that first before we get into a few other issues. So anyhow, folks, without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring her right in. Señora Tamara Shili, ¿cómo estás? How are you doing today?
¿Cómo está? How are you? Did I say that right?
Yes, you actually said ¿cómo estás? And guess what I just realized? You have a little buzz on your microphone every so often that's coming in. But you know what? We probably can clean that out later on when we do the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. How are you, Egberto and Politics Done Right family?
Oh, I am doing fine, and I'm sure our family is doing perfecto mundo, very much fine. Hey, I saw you rubbing shoulders with a so called woman that's running for president who came out and said, yes to reparations, and you guys are not talking about enough for reparations. Who was that woman again?
Is that Marianne Williamson?
Yeah, I think I saw you with her. Weren't you with her at some conference a few days ago?
Well, actually, I didn't think you would let me talk about this, Egberto. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to give you
Wait,
an
hold on.
update on
Stop.
the ADOS.
Stop. Stop.
I did
Stop.
not. I did not
Stop.
think that you were going to give me
Stop.
this opportunity.
Why? When have I ever denied you or anybody an opportunity to talk their minds on politics done right, which is the definition of this show?
You know what? But I didn't think you wanted to hear or get an update. So I was in Kentucky this
No,
past.
no, 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 no. Wait, I'm not letting you get away with that because you are giving politics done right a bad name in what you just said. You know better.
Yeah, but I appreciate you, Egberto, being the ally that you are.
Yes, ma'am.
So this past week I was in Louisville, Kentucky, for the first annual ADOS conference, which stands for American Descendants of Slavery. Those of us that are clear about our lineage of slavery in this country.
Of which Egberto is not a part of, she says.
Egberto, you have your own claim for reparations in your country.
Okay, continue.
So those of us that are clear about our lineage right here in these United States, we convened this past week in Louisville. Dr. Cornell West was a guest speaker. Marianne Williamson, she did show up. Actually, the picture that you saw was from a previous event, but she was actually at the ADOS conference where we were talking about reparations, and we're pushing this national agenda. We're not going to let the Democrats off of the hook with a call for reparations. We need it by 2053. Black America will have a zero net wealth, and we're not getting off our square, Egbert. So we're going to continue to push and push hard to the extent that I have come back to Georgia fired up and ready to go.
Now, I mean, weren't you with Miss Williamson as well, I believe?
She was at the event, this ADOS conference in Louisville, but the picture that you saw, Egberto, was from a previous event. She actually was in Atlanta, and I was able to meet her when she came to Atlanta.
Got you. I missed that. Okay, that is good. But it looked like you guys had a good time. Dr. Cornell West looked like he was having a fab time. I mean, everybody there, I saw some people get up on stage. You know, I kind of have to keep abreast of what's going on out there, you know. And it seems like folks were having a good time.
You know what? We were fired up. You know, this is a time where this nation must make amends. We have to really figure out how to close this racial wealth gap, how we need to address mass incarceration. You know, we need educational opportunities. There's so many things that affect Black people in this country that has to be addressed. And we're not going to allow the Democratic Party to take votes. One hashtag, Yvette Carnell, she is one of the organizers, when she talks about voting, and she said, this vote is not a gift, it's an exchange. So we want something for this vote. We're not going to just continue to give the Democratic Party votes and they not represent us as a people.
You know, I mean, that is definitely what you have to do. And when I told you that in as much as I have issues, I will always be an ally because the fact of the matter is, no, I mean, you guys are right. I mean, I'm sorry. You were right. No.
Thank you, Egberto.
No, but what I mean is, look, from the theory, from the mechanics, from the actuality, from how money grows, everything that you say is correct. Now, I have that claim from wherever, I'm not really sure, the Caribbean, Panama. The thing, here's the thing, when it comes to Black people from all over the American hemisphere is what I like to call it, because again, remember that we're talking about a whole slavery lineage going through all these other countries or thing. We don't have clear records of just about anything. I mean, it has always been amusing to me, people who can trace their lineage for 1,000 years, right? Because they have they can go from America to the places in the UK and all these stuffs and find some municipality that you can find that information. Many of us don't have that luxury. It stops at, oh, and there's no other way. It's good for DNA now that can kind of tell you, all right, you have this percentage in Nigeria, you have this percentage of Ethiopia or whatever. But other than that, you don't. So,
Exactly.
I mean, go ahead.
So this is why we have to, this is why this movement is so important and so timely, Egberto. Under this Donald Trump presidency, we haven't, now is the time where we talk about things that unite us.
Right.
And this is a part of, the Black community that has been underserved and ignored for far too long. And these are votes that the Democratic Party can count. But when you bring them into this fold, this Democratic umbrella, you got to bring them in and give them a reason to vote. And you and I were having a conversation about the city of Jonesboro and how just recently they moved the polling location to the damn police station.
That makes no sense.
You're talking about voter suppression at its finest. They have an ordinance in that city, Egberto, that says if you have sagging pants, it's disorderly conduct. So hell, if you walk in there and your pants sagging and you going in there to vote, you might go to jail.
It's interesting, Tamara, because you and I were discussing some of this beforehand, and I was saying there's some more information that I would have liked to have, or both of us would like to have about this. But it is so profound that it isn't even necessary to have all that information to come to a conclusion. And here's the thing, and I'm going to tell you how I am I always define myself: Black man, Latino man, Caribbean man. There are 3 reasons I don't want to go to a police station. And,
exactly.
And what, but people,
hell, you might look like somebody, Egberto. You look like somebody who we've been looking for. Why would you want to go there and vote?
You know what is so funny about it? I have a lot of my white brothers and sisters. When I make that comment, we'll be talking in jest, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll make that comment and I would tell them I stay away from police officers, period, whether black or white police officers, because there's something about blue that turns everybody into, well, you know what. And so anyhow, I stay away from police stations. I stay away from the criminal justice system. I'm a professional. I'm a radio host. I'm an engineer. I'm all these things, business owner. But you know what? Whenever they see that, you're just that worthless whatever. And, a lot of people say, oh, but they're not all like that. That's not the issue. The issue is I don't want to be the test case for the one who isn't.
Exactly. Hell, you don't even want them following you. I hate when a police car even gets behind me.
And again, we know that most black people, most people of color, period, are no different from crimes, from anything than anybody else. We had a discussion and the other day, and I don't want to take over your segment, but I just want to say this real quickly. I know this is your segment, but
I love it. Keep going.
Yeah, I want to say this real quickly. This friend of mine was like, well, if you take a look at the FBI statistics, blacks really do commit more crimes than white people, and this, and you know me, I listen very well. I let the person talk and I let him make his case and so forth, and then I use a computer program as an example. If I put bad data into a computer program, and you're a programmer as well, if I put bad data into a computer program, bad data comes out. I live in Kingwood, a predominantly white area. You live in a predominantly white area. Now, here's the funny thing about it. In our areas, when police officers watch teenagers or young adults do bad things or do illegal things, many times they get a slap on the wrist and tell you to go home. If they're underage, they tell go home to mommy, or they break up the keg or whatever. And that's what they do in a lot of the white areas. You go to a predominantly black, a predominantly Latino, predominantly minority people of color, lower class white folk or whatever out there, what you find is they bring you in they arrest you. And once you get arrested or once you're in the system, you have a number, you have a code, you form a part of the statistics. So if these two neighborhoods have the same behavior, but this one goes into the FBI stats and this one doesn't go into the FBI stats, then automatically things are biased against that community. Those are the things why we have to be out here telling that story, because you don't hear when they bring the stats on MSNBC, that's what they say. They don't come and tell you, but this is how they came about those stats. And
Bad data
taking your
in, bad
position.
data out.
There you
You
go.
summed it up perfectly, Egberto. The numbers are not representative of everybody. Bad data in, bad data out. I'm with you.
Absolutely. Now, talk to me about our guy's heart attack. What does it mean?
Oh, and Bernie. Prayers for Bernie. You know, I was a Bernie crat with you
Yes.
guys, but I'm rocking with Marianne because she's talking about reparations in this country. But Bernie, my heart goes out to him. Prayers for him and his family. And then he just lost his daughter-in-law.
You told me that. I didn't know that.
So there's a lot happening with Bernie right now, and you know,
And she was only 46.
yes, she was very young, very young. So, you know, Bernie is still carrying a message. I believe he will still make it through this primary. I think he's going to be fine. We just having a trying time right now.
Right, but you know, like I said, the good thing about it is we have a blessing of, I would say, 2 solid progressive candidates and 2 other acceptable ones. So I mean, I count that there are 4 people I wouldn't really have to hold my nose when I vote. You know, something was interesting. You know, right now Biden, the person who I will have, if he were to make it, I would have to hold my nose, tie my neck, and do everything before. I will vote for. I will be voting blue no matter what. But if he's the,
Ooh, really? Well, there's a whole subset of people that's not voting blue no matter who.
I understand that perfectly, and I know you're probably not one of them. After all, you're the one that comes out with withhold the vote. I get that. We disagree on that, but hey, that's cool. I will be voting blue no matter what because I think that there are a whole lot of things that have to get done. But right now in the primaries, I'm fighting like hell to get that most progressive person elected. So, you know, what can I say? Zerlina Maxwell had something interesting to say about the black vote today.
What did she say?
And she said that Biden needs to get up. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but pretty much Biden better get off the butt because he really doesn't own the black vote. And, you know, because, I mean, he think he does, right? But what he's saying is that, well, I mean, you look at all the older folks in Georgia. In Georgia, you know, they love them some Biden now.
That ain't true.
Okay, well, maybe not your group, but, you know.
That's not true. Don't generalize. No, that's not true. There's a lot of people that's not going to vote for Joe Biden or will skip him on the ballot or just won't even go. So,
Yeah.
And withhold the vote means not to vote. It doesn't mean not go to the polls and vote. That's not what it says, Egberto. Let me explain it for those who haven't heard me say this for the 10 millionth time.
You tell me, girl.
It is holding those candidates and elected officials accountable to communities and ADOS and people of color. Like, no more do we take this vote for granted. Skip people on the ballot. Skip them. Joe Biden will not be getting that black vote. Watch and see.
No, well, I mean, I think what Zerlina Maxwell had to say makes a lot of sense, and I'm going to cut that up into a video shortly, which is, you know, pretty much, she look at folks like the impact that Elizabeth Warren is having. I don't know what's happening to Kamala Harris. I really don't understand.
Bye, Kamala. Bye. Hashtag bye, Kamala.
Oh, God.
See you later.
That was not nice.
Bye, Corey. Bye, Kamala.
Well,
Hashtag
we know look, the reasons we are not for Corey and Kamala are kind of technical, but I mean, man, it's hard to explain sometimes. Why are you dumping on everybody? Loves them some Cory Booker, right? Because a lot of folks. I mean, they love them. I mean, when I tell you know, I have some women that came over for we had like a political thing, and they came over and they said. One of them said, "What do you think about Booker?" And I looked at them like, I'm going to have to look at these women and tell them I don't like Booker when I know that they like Booker. And so how do I explain that? All right.
How did you?
Well, I just had to use one thing, and that is, remember Cory Booker stopped the drugs from coming in. It was partially responsible for the people who wanted to get cheaper drugs brought in from Canada or outside the country to bring it in, which meant he was owned by the pharmaceutical big pharma. Yeah. So that was it. Anyhow, tell me first of all, what give me a little bit about what's going to be happening on your show on Friday. I think you said, "Oh, guess what? I am early this time with my preparation."
Yeah, I'm excited, Egberto, because November 9th, we're going to actually have, which is a Saturday, we're going to actually do a reading of Dr. Martin Luther King's book, Where Do We Go From Here?
Uh huh.
Chaos or Community. So David and I are going to start the conversation around this book. It has been a phenomenal. I have been listening to it on audio. It was the suggested read for our ADOS conference, and it is an amazing book.
Is that the book? I mean, does that cover where Martin Luther King finally said when he realized the farmers were getting gypped and all these other folks were getting gypped, said, "I think it's time for us to come and get our check."
But yeah, we're coming for our check.
Yeah. When,
Martin Luther King, this was his last manuscript. This was his last book that was written. And there's a lot to unpack. And, before he was assassinated, he was on a different path. And I'm excited to read the book. I'm not finished, so I can't comment totally, but I'm excited to read it. So again, on November the 9th, which is a Saturday, we're going to do a coffee and conversation, and we're inviting people to come out and let's talk about unpacking this book.
you know what is amazing? It's amazing how Martin Luther King over the years has been sanitized. Like today, the right wing would have Martin Luther King for mincemeat. Right now, we're having the right wing they're talking so nicely about Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
as if they were really believed in him during that time.
yeah, and that gets to me, right? Because even though I'm a Malcolm X guy, but you know that. So I don't believe in asking for my freedom or shaming
Ballad
you
of
into
the
giving.
bullet?
No, I don't believe in shaming folks into giving me my freedom, because I think that means that they have the power to take it away. And look, Martin Luther King is one of my heroes, but I think a lot of the results of today is because let me tell you what, when I came to America, that I learned about, right? And that was the word boy. I never knew boy. I never knew a lot of those kinds of words. Don't get me wrong, there's racism where I come from, but it's a different kind, it's a different flavor. I didn't understand what the boy meant and all these other terms meant, right? Mm-hmm. And I can sit down now and understand a whole lot of this stuff. And what pisses me off the most about turning the other cheek is that when somebody feels that they are the ones who had the power to reward you with something, then they also feel like later on how this 45 feels. I was on a conscious mindset who told me to stop using his name. He told me, Berto, start calling it 45. It's hard to do, so I'm going to try. So he says 45 says, it's to start now going ahead and saying, all right, I'm going to take what's mine. I'm telling, in what I'm doing, you're working with ADOS. So you're working with a group that's working on reparations, of which I am your ally, okay?
Thank you, Egberto. You're getting it right today.
I'm going to get you. But anyway, but my bigger thing is middle class America, poor America. I want everybody in America, poor, middle class, all these folks, right, to understand that they have to take it. And here's the kicker, Tamara. There are two ways, right? People express things in two ways. ADOS says if black people get what's theirs and they start to develop into the economic system, it is better for us all. That is true. That's 100% true. And you would hear Dr. What's his name that you just saw? Dr.
Cornel West.
Dr. Cornel West says that in some form. But I have another. I believe in burning a candle from both ends. If I make the vast majority of Americans allies, right? I don't care if they like me or not. I'm not in for the love of anybody. But what I mean is, if we are working towards a particular goal, if we're working towards that $15 minimum wage index to inflation, that don't only help that poor white person, it helps that poor black person. Or that when I'm working for Medicare for all, I have an ally in everybody else.
But stay there with that point, Egberto. That's equality and equity.
Yes.
Like, you want equality, we're asking for equity at this point.
I don't want equality. I want equity.
Well, equity means that those of us that are ADOS, we need you to cut that check.
Right. But
We need reparations because those of us that are ADOS are so far at the bottom. By 2053, it is estimated that we will have a zero net wealth, Egberto. We don't need equality. Equality is going to make it, we need equity. We got to have equity before we can have equality.
and it's a concept that has to be explained, Tamara.
I know.
You saying it is not enough.
We are
Okay.
saying it. I am not alone.
No, no. When
in
I
this
say you,
conversation.
when I say you, I'm talking ADOS.
Mhm.
When you're saying it, that is not enough, and that's a lot of stuff that I try to tell some of my ADOS friends here in Houston. I actually have an interview. I think it's on my YouTube channel already. You
Look
should
at you.
check it out
Look
with
at
that.
you.
Yeah, I have your back.
You're getting better. I'm telling you, Egberto, trust me.
Tamara, tell me a little bit
They've been
about your.
trashing you, Egberto.
I know the ADOS people trash me, but it's okay. They know I love.
But you're getting better. We gonna fall in love with you, Egberto. They gonna
Let-
fall in love with you.
You know something? The ADOS people, they're not going to be able to avoid that because when they actually see how I think, they're going to realize that I never considered them an enemy. It's about how do you actually work together. It's that simple.
And we appreciate you, Egberto. So one thing you mentioned about turning the other cheek,
Mm-hmm.
I see, MLK's message as forgiveness. And we have to show white America what forgiveness looks like. And you know what? I watched that whole the judge in that case in Dallas when
Don't bring it up.
I know.
I hated that.
You know what? It was very painful to watch. But you know what? I'm going to talk to you from a spiritual place versus me speaking to you in the natural.
Let me just tell you something. Because this is going so interestingly, you're going 10 minutes over your slot. But I think this is too good. Go ahead.
I promise I won't make it long.
No,
But
go ahead, do it because I think this is important for all people to see. I want black people, white people, Asian people, everybody to hear this because I want to also tell you my point of view. But go ahead.
Okay. So when I watched it in the physical, watching it in the natural, it was very, very painful. Like
Yes.
like really, you not only did he hug her, but then the judge hugged her, and then the lady that was stroking her hair. It was painful. However, this is where I turned it around and I saw it in the spirit. And this book is willing to really helping me to kind of like pull my thoughts together, this physical and this spiritual part of myself. So what I saw in that moment was forgiveness. And forgiveness, Egberto, because I've held resentment in my heart for I'll just be very candid. My father, because he was an absent part of my life, and I was angry with my father for 25 years of my life. 25 years I was mad at my dad because I needed my father and he wasn't there. So I know what that does to you as a person carrying around anger and hatred. And when I made a very conscious decision at 25 years old, pregnant with my son, because I was not going to carry this baby and be angry with my father and have this kind of bitterness in my heart because I didn't want to pass that on to my son. So I made a very conscious decision to forgive my father, forgive him wholeheartedly, for just forgive it and let it go, and me be a better person. Like it was conscious, and I remember the day it actually happened. Going back to this trial, and what I saw when looking at that in the spirit was how we as a people, we have a forgiving spirit. And white America is, when I look at where we are with all the racism and this divide under this 45 administration, Black people now have to show white people that we are better than them. Because you know what? It's easy for us to hate them. It's very easy for us to be angry. It's very easy for us to retaliate. If we wanted to, all these years of slavery and this historical trauma that we have, we could really do some damage here in America. But that is not who we are. That is not who we are. So what I saw in that moment in that courtroom was I saw it in my spirit. I had to see it differently. And that was a moment to me in history when we were showing white America that we are better than who you say we are. And that was a moment in forgiveness. And I can see it in the writings of Dr. King with when they were spitting on them and they was beating them and using the dogs and the water hoses, where Dr. King was saying, don't fight back, nonviolence. So I am looking at this not in the natural, but I saw it in the spiritual, Egberto, and I'll stop there.
Okay, let me come back with two things.
Yes.
First of all, I accept that that works for you. I
Yes.
really do accept that it works for you. It worked for a whole lot of Martin Luther King's followers, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the aggregate, it hasn't worked for America. And let me tell you what I mean. First
Mm-hmm.
of all, I don't think black people are better than white people. I don't think white people are better than black people. I honestly don't. I don't buy into that because I buy into the thing about genetics. And the truth of the matter is, if you believe in genetics and you believe just in science, the race thing is a kind of a silly thing. The race thing is a tool that capitalism uses. I don't want to go into that. That'll change the subject. But when it came to the hug, what I saw is to me, what it taught America is the gradation of value. In other words, to me, when I see that a white police officer blew the head off of or blew the heart out of a black man in his home or in
Mm-hmm.
his own home.
Oh, I'm not.
And
She did it. Like,
I
we're
know,
clear about
right?
that. We're
I
clear
know,
she
I
did it.
know. And look, I
She
really
did it.
understood. I really understood what you were saying. I really get it. And we just take a different aspect, a different point of view from that.
And
I
that's
think
and I believe that to be so, Egberto, because you're not spiritual.
no, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. I'm spiritual. Well, did I stop you from talking? Thank you.
Don't get smart.
Thank you. All right. Anyway, so here's what I think now. When I saw that, first of all, when I saw the guy says, "Can I hug her?" The guy who killed her. Okay, a lot of people say, okay, well, he was doing that for himself to show that he's forgiven. Okay, fine. I accept it from the young man. I really do accept it from the young man. However, I would never do it because I think the mechanics it shows is I have yet to have seen, except recently on CNN, that that white people in general see a black man, somebody who looks like me, even accidentally commit a crime and don't have a visceral hate. I walk into places where the eyes alone tells you there is a visceral hate. I don't hate back. I love everybody. I honestly love everybody. I do not hate back. But by the same token, if somebody slaps me, I'm going to slap the holy hell back out of them. And the reason why, and let me finish. I think it is important because I think, remember what I said, I never understood what it was like being called boy or all these things. It was like, I can do to you what you can't do to me. That is a part that has gotten to me. And then when the judge, who now claims the woman asked her for a hug, that's what she claims now.
And she said that she asked her 2 times. Did you see her video?
I don't care. I really do not care. This woman murdered a human being, and the likely reason that when that guy stood up, she shot him in the heart was because the person who stood up had a pigmentation like mine. Had the pigmentation looked like my white brother, my white sister, more than likely that guy would not have been shot. And what I'm saying is, and like I wrote in one of the blogs, is what I think is dangerous in this whole thing, right? Is people react to us just because of pigmentation, and their actions are differently. You see a police officer allow a white man to beat the crap out of them, kick them, slap them, and they use a taser. We just resist arrest by don't hold me, and we're shot. That behavior, and nobody, when that guy in Minnesota shot, he was legitimately scared when he shot the Australian woman through a window. He was legitimately scared. Nobody offered him comfort. No judge said, let me give you a hug. It's a legal system.
So what about the people in South Carolina? Remember the church?
I hated that too.
They forgave.
I hated that
I've heard
too.
several interviews of those people, those parishioners. They forgave him.
I know they did. And what I'm saying is, when does the forgiveness end? When does the forgiveness end?
America should be glad that there's a lot of us that have forgiveness in our hearts, because America could be a very dangerous, you just used the word dangerous, could be a very dangerous place if black people acted the same way white people acted toward us. We could be in the middle of a civil war right here.
But Miss Sheely.
So my point is, you should be glad that there is some forgiveness somewhere in some of our hearts.
Let me ask you this. Forgiveness doesn't mean, not forgiving somebody doesn't mean being violent. Okay, in other words, I don't forgive those who effect damage on us for the color of the skin. I don't even hate them. But the one thing I never do is forgive. I am just a man.
So you don't forgive. So if somebody does something to you, you're saying you don't forgive them.
No, I don't. And let me explain what I mean by that, okay?
You can forgive, Egberto, but maybe not forget. But forgiveness is for you.
Maybe for you, my friend.
Okay. But not for you.
Not for me. What I mean, and this doesn't even mean I don't love the person. I can love somebody.
How can you love somebody and not forgive them, Egberto? That's.
It's easy. It's easy because what that person.
You really don't love them if you didn't forgive them.
No, well, that's how you define it. But I define it as if somebody does wrong, they hold on to it. When I do wrong to somebody, I want them to hold it against me permanently.
Forever.
Forever.
Ever. So you did wrong to somebody, yes. and you realize that I did wrong, and you go back and you tell that person, I apologize. I could have done things
and
differently.
I accept your apology.
And sincerely. No, I'm talking. You do this to somebody else. You sincerely apologize to them. Now,
yes.
Wouldn't you want that person to forgive you?
I guess
Come on now. If you know you did, hear me out, Egberto. You know you did something. You go to that person and you say, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me. I want things to be better. Hell, that's even in a marriage, Egberto.
Can I finish now?
Go ahead, Egberto.
All right. This is what I really mean. Okay. When I read the Bible, and remember I read the whole darn New Testament, but
you're not a believer, so you really don't need to go there with me because you're not a believer. So don't. It's like having a conversation with somebody you don't even believe.
Okay. Here's okay. I won't use the Bible then.
Please, because you don't even believe.
I do believe, but not differently. But anyhow, here's the interesting thing. I think forgiveness is generally sort of a cop-out. In other words, and this is what I mean by a cop-out.
So if somebody offered you okay.
Let me finish. Don't get excited. Let me finish. Don't let me tag you with you know what.
Go ahead, Egberto.
Okay. Here's what I mean, and then I'm going to move on. We move on to what I need to talk about as well. But because you went and grabbed this confounded program, my friend. When I think people misunderstand what I mean by forgiveness. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you mean by forgiveness?
Yeah. To me, the forgiveness people talk about is a forgiveness to give you an excuse to do it over again. Okay. That's what in other words, here's a funny thing. Hitler, and I'm going to use the worst person on the planet. Hitler killed all these people. And according to some people's good book, Hitler could then come and be genuinely sorry for what he has done and look and say, oh, Jesus, please forgive me. And we all treat him with forgiveness and forget everything that he says. Is that right? Tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Oh, Hitler. So you're saying that people. Okay, I'm confused, Egberto. So people should forgive Hitler? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying they should not.
They should not forgive him.
Right. Even if he says, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and I'm very sorry for what I've done.
This is why the Republicans own Christianity and religion, and this is why they own it, because we're all over the place with what we believe. They're real clear about what they believe. We're just all over the place.
Yes, we are. But Tamara, I got to go to Medicare for All, and you came over and hoodwinked my show today. But that's good. We'll
have to do this again, Egberto.
Yeah, but I don't think our definition of forgiveness are the same. I think that is what the issue really is.
Because my definition of forgiveness is to let it go. You may not ever forget. I'm not saying forget.
Then you haven't let it go if you don't forget.
No, you got a memory, Egberto. You got to keep it there. And it's a boundary. You know how far to go with somebody. If somebody's harmed you in such a way, you know that, okay, I'm only going to go so far with you because you've shown me who you are. But I can forgive you for what you've done, but I won't forget. And I'm going to put a boundary there. And you'll never get that close to me to hurt me that way again. But I forgive you. I let it go. I will let go what you've done to me so that we can go on and have some sort of relationship. And whatever happened in that courtroom, you know, that young man was, you know, he forgave that, you know, what's her name, Amber. He forgave her for himself because he didn't want to. I get from my spiritual understanding is that I get the impression that he did not want to carry the burden of hating her.
Yes.
So that is why I believe he did it. And the judge says that she asked her twice. The first time she did not hug her, but then when she asked her again, she did it.
True. Okay, Miss Sheila, tell us a little bit about your show on Friday. And
so Friday should be just as be on fire, just like this broadcast was today. I want to thank you, Egberto. We'll be talking again about where do we go from here, chaos or community, on our Friday broadcast at 11 a.m. right here on Facebook and on YouTube.
Thank you so kindly, Tamara, for being here. You have a wonderful day. And we are out with Tamara, and we are in with you guys know what. Anyhow, folks, we are going to have a great conclusion of the show. Let me tell you, folks, we are going to do this and do this right. Listen, I have a very good friend. And I have to say, let's see. First of all, let me see if I have. Hi, Kathleen Morgan. How are you doing? Welcome aboard. Hello, Maywood. One of these days, I'm going to get here in time for the start of the show. Yeah, why don't you get here in time? No, you listen. You are welcome. Whatever time you come, do remember that we have podcasts, so you're never, ever, 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 ever left in the cold. Anyhow, I have a blog of the week that I'm going to read, and I'm going to read it quickly because it's important to me. But a friend of mine, he sent out a blast, and the blast that he sent out sort of got me. It kind of shook me up for a while, and then I immediately went and called him. You know, that's how we roll. I want to talk about my good friend El Señor Danny Fertante. I can never say his last name right, even though it's supposed to be easy. So let me tell you, do you guys know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the title of the blog post is Why has Danny lost his arm and Bernie's heart paused? They preached Medicare for all. A healthcare crisis redoubled Danny Fertante's and Bernie's effort to use their temporary health setback to illustrate the need for Medicare for all. There is nothing better than showing Americans with real life, with lived experience, with lived examples why it is a must. Bernie Sanders recently had a mild heart attack. They unblocked his arteries with a couple of stents and sent him off to his merry way. Bernie had great insurance. Unlike most Americans, he got the care he needed, deserved, and as a human right entitled to have. One of the first tweets from the hospital was statement enough. Thanks, this is what Bernie tweeted. Thanks for all the well wishes. I'm feeling good. I'm fortunate to have good health care and great doctors and nurses helping me to recover. None of us know when a medical emergency might affect us, and no one should fear going bankrupt if it does or if it occurs. Medicare for all. That's what Bernie, the man just got a stent put in his heart, and that's what he had to say. It's bringing up Medicare for all. Then if you folks who are following me on the blog, you can take a look and you can see my good friend in his hospital bed as they had to take one arm off from liposarcoma. But anyhow, I met Danny Fertante at the 2016 DNC. He was a part of the Austin, Texas Bernie Sanders delegation. I was a part of the Houston, Texas Sanders delegation. We had a lot in common, an undeniable passion bordering on obsession to collaborate with others to bring fairness to our economic system. We hung out and listened to the lived realities of the millennials, the seniors, and everybody in between. He has always been a union man and worked his way into well-deserved leadership. Tonight, I received the following email blast from Danny. I was very concerned for my friend, so here's what it says. He titled it, Fetantes for Bernie, the last great president was in a wheelchair and had health issues as he made America better. So here is this guy, okay? Here is this guy. He's ill, and at the same time, he's going through and saying this. But anyhow, let me read what he wrote. He wrote, I'm in the hospital, and caller, I'm coming after the blog of the week. I'm in the hospital with a rare cancer. Due to the cancer, my left arm was amputated. The doctor asked me if I had worked on industry because I had remnants of working in industry in my lungs. I worked at Bethlehem Steel for 4 years and other industrial jobs for another 9 years. The doctor said the cancer from the tumor in my arm had metastasized to my lungs. The tumors in my lungs had attached themselves to the areas in my lungs that had been weakened due to the industrial waste. I started complaining in March of this year about pain in my arm. My waiting time was 6 months, and that was with Medicare and a good union insurance plan. Many Americans without good insurance plan would have to wait years, and those with no insurance would have ended up in the emergency room half dead with cancer. We have an insurance system, not a healthcare system. It's wrong what we have. Bernie has a solution on healthcare that will help all Americans. Bernie's programs on transportation, on the environment, on mass shootings, on lead poisoning, and make the government work for the people, not the billionaires. I have good health care. Everyone in America deserves good health care. And then he goes on to talk about, hey guys, you need to up your donations to Bernie Sanders. I won't read that part, but then I'll say, the doctor said that feeling good produces endorphins, works well with chemicals they are pumping into me that will kill the tumors. That sounds funny, but the doctors told me the good spirits helps the chemo kill the tumors. If you want me to beat cancer, then help Bernie win in the first 4 primaries on Super Tuesday. Every time you send $1 or talk to a friend about Bernie, you are helping kill my cancerous tumors. In other words, you make him happy and his cancer tumors will go. Keep talking and sending money is what he says to Brother Bernie. Anyway, that's the end of his letter. I immediately called Danny after receiving the email. I expected to hear a tired and likely soft voice given his current ordeal. That was not to be. Egberto, I'm just walking in from the hospital from some treatments, Danny said with his booming voice. You know, Egberto, I spoke to the nurse and the aides and everyone at the hospital. When I asked them about who they liked, most looked around and then quietly said, Bernie. Danny was on automatic pilot. He was in the hospital not only as a patient in chief, but for Medicare for All, but a Medicare for All explainer in chief. He said it was not at all difficult to convince even those not predisposed to like it. I didn't put it in the article, but he also said that many of the doctors were for Medicare for All in this private hospital. Why? Because it is logical and illustrates the degeneracy of the current healthcare system we have. Danny said he is blessed to have Medicare as well as the union insurance. He is better off healthcare-wise than the vast majority of Americans. His case of liposarcoma would be fatal for most, even with the insurance today, because of how it presents itself, how many times it is diagnosed very late. Danny will overcome this major setback if only because of his positivity, will, and intent on surviving. More importantly, even as he is exhausted and in pain after his treatment, he is out there either physically or virtually serving. That's my brother from another mother. That's my union guy. That's my guy who's out there working for the people. That is a guy that we all folks need to be like. Somebody that is constantly out there doing the job. Let me bring my caller in. Let's go, caller from 409. You are hot. Come on in, 409.
Hey, Egberto, it's Anand again.
Hey, Anand, talk to me.
What's the topic? I'm here in Galveston. I wanted to skip the Houston traffic, so I just went early.
So you made it in. You're in Galveston. Anyway, well, today we had two topics really. We were talking about the real topic though was a friend of mine who who was unlucky enough to get liposarcoma. As a doctor, you know what that is, and he was in he lost his arm to it, and some of it metastasized into his lungs. The doctors have a good prognosis for him. The chemo that he's on, some heavy duty chemo, working on that right now. And he's, even while in the hospital, he's out there preaching Medicare for all. Even while in the hospital, just like Bernie preaching it right after the stents, he was as well.
Well, everyone there has a bill, so, that's the best audience.
Absolutely. You know what? I never thought about it. You would think about it like that, Anand.
Well, yeah. I mean, in my experience, when you do the campaigning, I've seen firsthand you tend to get a lot of old people at these audiences, and you don't get that many young people that excited when it actually comes to these town halls.
Yeah, but you know what is happening right now? I think some other people have realized that reality, because what they're doing right now, Anand, is they're scaring the bejesus out of people with Medicare. First of all, they're all pushing Medicare Advantage, which costs us 20% more in order to give people coverage where they don't have to buy a supplemental plan necessarily, because Medicare Advantage, which is a form of socialized medicine that tells you what doctor you can go to and everything, will control everything. So they are telling you, oh, those folks who want Medicare for all want to take away that good Medicare that you have. What you say about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, whenever we do these town halls, I've done one in Michigan, and I did one in Kansas City. Well, I did a couple in Kansas City, and we kept getting people about age 50, maybe older, and I think they all have experience with bills, so they're the most interested in seeing what it's all about. But the hospital bring up the issue.
You must be walking.
Yes.
Okay, because I can hear that Galveston breeze.
Oh, yes.
What are you doing in Galveston? Were you at a conference?
Oh, I just came down to visit.
Oh, okay. Nice to take a little vacation from Ohio, right?
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Talking to some people, we'll see if anything comes of the visit down here. But we'll see.
I hear some spinnings about a doctor moving back to town.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, Anand, I get it.
We'll
I
see.
get it. I won't expose you on air. Anyhow,
but
what are your thoughts about Bernie and the stents?
The stent, my father, you've met my father.
Of course.
He has one, and he's pretty energetic, so it's not a good thing that he had a heart attack, but not as bad as you might think. The thing is, when they describe it on TV, they're having trouble deciding, is it a surgery or is it a procedure? I would say it's a procedure.
Right. Of course it's a procedure.
Yeah, it's a procedure. And, I don't know why he had it. I would like to know maybe a little bit more. But in terms of prognosis, it depends on the person. It's not really... If somebody had said, like, oh, he had a colonoscopy and polyps were removed, I don't know if people would be as bothered, But in terms of how risky that procedure is, it's a lot closer to a colonoscopy than it is open heart surgery.
Right, and the other thing, though, that let me tell you what concerns me. They said an infarct, right? And if it's an infarct, my question is what percentage of his heart tissue was damaged or died?
They won't know.
That takes a while, right?
They can only look at his... Yeah, it takes a while. Also, the myocard, the heart pumping could be stunned at first, and then in 2 or 3. I'm not a cardiologist, so I can't say, but I think 3 to 6 months later you can check the function, and if you take your medicines, the function can improve.
Okay.
So
yeah.
The prognosis is variable. If the most important thing for him, and if anybody's listening, is if you have a heart attack, make sure you take your medications. It's actually more important than the stent itself.
And what kind of medications are those generally? I'm just curious.
If you've had a heart attack with a stent, typically they'll give you aspirin. They'll give you a blood pressure medicine. They'll give you another blood pressure medicine, and then they will give you usually cholesterol medicine.
Okay.
So there's about 4 to 5 medicines that you take if you've had a heart in Bernie's situation. If it is indeed, he got a stent, then that means probably he's going to need to start taking 4 to 5 different medicines, and you keep taking. Oh, and then another medicine to keep the stent open. So about 5 medicines he needs to take to keep that stent open.
Right. Well, I wish him well. I do think that for those of us who supported Bernie, I think practically speaking, we're going to have to come to the realization that this is actually going to have an impact on some people's, how some people vote. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's tough. But I mean, what do we do in an election when we have 4 70-year-olds at the top? And
Yeah.
Donald Trump, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, and Bernie, they're all over 70.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're all any of them are doing too young.
Right. Well, anyhow, look, man, I got to get ready to close this baby out. It was great hearing from you, Anand, and I'll see you sometime this weekend, maybe.
Okay, see you then.
You have a good one, my brother. Take care now.
All right, bye.
Okay, folks, we are close to the end of the show. We kind of stayed on a long time with Tamara, ending on forgiveness or not forgiveness and all these other kinds of things. I hope you enjoyed the show because, I mean, there's a lot more to talk about. I want to remind you guys that this is your show. You agree, disagree, whatever with the things that we talk about. I want you to come out and say it because it is important. That is how we make change in this world. That is how we make things happen, by being able to talk through things. As you can see, being able to also disagree, or not even that. Sometimes you're talking across each other. Sometimes you have different interpretations of the things that you talk. Once you learn how to do all those things, things move quite well. Folks, it's been my pleasure being here on Politics Done Right. I thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We got to get out of here. You know how I end this baby. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And what do I say? I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.